It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. We take your emails as well at randykabc@gmail.com. That's randykabc@gmail.com. It seems to be just a persistent fact that if you live in California, you're in the middle of the California insurance crisis, which had a little bit of a dust-up today as Ricardo Lara, the California insurance commissioner, was in Los Angeles at LA City Hall for an assembly meeting on the insurance crisis. And there's a press conference in front of the steps of City Hall by concerned residents and Jamie Court of Consumer Watchdog saying that Ricardo Lara has a whole lot of ideas of how to make the insurers get a lot more money from you without actually having to write any more policies. Let's get into what exactly happened at the steps of City Hall today, what the conflict is in the plan to get us out of the insurance crisis, and a couple updates on some shady dealings going on with the big insurance companies and bipartisan members of the legislature. My question to you at 800-222-KABC is this: 1-800-222-5222. Do you trust California elected officials to get us out of this crisis? Do you trust Ricardo Lara, the legislature, and Gavin Newsom to get us out of the insurance crisis? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Let's start with what happened today in front of City Hall. Here's NBC4.
Meantime, Southern California homeowners who were dropped by their insurance companies and hit with massive rate hikes gathered in front of LA City Hall this morning. NBC4's Gordon Tokumatsu is live in downtown LA with who they were trying to confront. Gordon.
And of course, there's a siren. It's the soundtrack to Southern California.
Well, Annabelle, California's insurance commissioner was here at City Hall to meet with an Assembly Oversight Committee. But a local consumer watchdog group met with reporters beforehand because they wanted to call him out for high insurance rates.
That's the thing. All you've been hearing is stories left and right of the insurers canceling policies, raising rates. My rates just got raised again. They just got raised last year, too. In 2 years, my premium for my home insurance in a house that is not a fire zone has almost doubled. It's insulting.
Bruce Breslow, representing his homeowners association in Chatsworth, 290 homeowners, some on fixed incomes. Their insurance company dropped them 4 months ago.
The premium went from $349,000 to a whopping $1.7 million.
That's the rate hikes that we're getting now in this situation where the insurers are complaining it takes too long to get a rate hike approved, and we need to get them approved faster and with less resistance, which is what Ricardo Lara is planning for, to get them all back into the market. I don't know.
My premium doubled.
Retired firefighter Gigi Bannister, who lives in Crestline. She filed a $40,000 claim after a snow-related collapse at her house. The company not only denied it, they canceled her policy.
Insurance companies should be forced to honor claims. Otherwise, what is insurance for?
That is a very good question, and a question we're all going to be asking ourselves in about 10 years if the concept of insurance even makes sense anymore. Because insurance claims have gotten so crazy because of extreme weather events, whether it's the wildfires. Not all of them are caused by Mother Nature. Literally, one of them in San Bernardino was caused by arson. But still, there are massive events. You got the hurricanes in the southeast. You've got tornadoes in the south. You've got a whole bunch of other things. It's so bad that the insurance companies now have their own insurance. And one of the problems that Ricardo Lara wanted to bring to the assembly today is insurance companies have to pay insurance, and their insurance rates are going up, and they can't pass that cost on to you. And we think if we let them pass that cost on to you for their insurance rates going up to your insurance rates, well, they'll be more likely to write you a policy, albeit one that you cannot afford.
Such stories are becoming more and more common as climate change impacts every Californian's life. Fires, floods, slides. Jamie Court of Consumer Watchdog lays the blame for the higher rates on the state's insurance commissioner, Ricardo Lara, and a new set of regulations he's implementing as early as next year.
Unfortunately, Insurance Commissioner Lara has been worse than a sleep at the switch. He's been in the back rooms making deals with the insurance companies.
My response is that...
I mean, that's the thing. This process, by the way, no urgency whatsoever. Even if Ricardo Lara wants to say he's working as quickly as possible, this has been a major issue for a couple of years now. Gavin Newsom put an executive order out last September. We're going to do something about this. And Ricardo Lara says by January, we're going to have the framework of a new agreement. And the new agreement, from everything I've heard, and I listened to the majority of that assembly hearing today on the way home, is we're going to make it much easier for insurance companies to raise your rates. That seems to be the consensus. We need to make it easier for them to charge you even more money, even though that's what they're already doing.
My response is that it's a lie.
Lara speaking with reporters this afternoon after meeting with the Assembly Oversight Committee, an intense 3-hour hearing where Assembly members asked him pointed questions about his plan.
We're ruffling some feathers on some entrenched interest on both sides.
Oh, yeah. So Ricardo Lara, the insurance commissioner who campaigned on not taking any donations from the insurance industry, who then ended up taking donations from the insurance industry, who is termed out of this job and potentially making some lifelong friends for when he's unelectable because he's been in charge of this insurance disaster. Ricardo Lara spent a good portion of today's assembly hearing saying the problem is the system that Prop 103 created, where you have, I believe he called it instigators, but you have groups like Consumer Watchdog, whenever a rate hike is filed, reviewing it to see if these rate hikes are legitimate or the insurance companies are just trying to bleed us dry. He tried to claim the real villain of this story is the consumer groups because they get paid to review those rate hikes and they're fleecing you, the consumer. I don't know about that one.
My response is that it's a lie.
Lara speaking with reporters this afternoon after meeting with the Assembly Oversight Committee.
Look at this, finally doing an interview, albeit for 10 seconds in front of a couple of cameras.
An intense 3-hour hearing where Assembly members asked him pointed questions about his plan.
We're ruffling some feathers on some entrenched interest on both sides.
Insurers as well as the insured, says Lara, but his bottom line is contained in his new set of regulations. First, do everything possible to keep insurers in the state. Do this by bringing down the risk for them over time.
And the way you do that is you let them charge whatever they want, which is what's going on in Florida right now. And as bad as the insurance crisis is in California, it's just as bad in anything goes Florida. So as much as we want to say, oh, it's overregulation. Well, Florida has no regulation whatsoever. The insurance companies have tripled, quadrupled premiums to the point where there are people who own homes and condos in Florida where their insurance costs more than the mortgage and the property tax. And they want to leave. They want to sell. Nobody's willing to buy.
First, do everything possible to keep insurers in the state. Do this by bringing down the risk for them over time, even as catastrophic weather events loom. Then, bring down the cost for homeowners.
How? We're just going to bring down the costs. But how?
We can't have insurers retracting or leaving the state because we're never going to get to affordability.
So, Ricardo Lara's plan is to quicken the process, remove all the red tape to make it so when an insurer asks for a rate hike, they get it almost immediately. Forget 6 months to a year. We're talking 60 to 90 days max. And that will stabilize the market, in Ricardo Lara's opinion. The insurers will come back because they can charge whatever they want, and then magically the prices will go down. Yeah, I don't know about that last part.
He's talking about major insurance companies that are leaving the state of California or threatening to leave it because the claims related to climate change are often way too expensive. We're seeing similar things happening in other states like Texas, Florida, and Washington. Reporting live from downtown L.A., Gordon Tokumatsu, NBC4 News.
That is the base of what happened today. What Ricardo Lara is working on, his plan that he says is going to start on January 1st. The insurers are all going to come back because we said that we're going to make it way easier for them to raise your rates, even though they've been raising the rates this entire time and canceling policies left and right. And, you know, this is where I need to ask you. You've heard from Ricardo Lara. You've heard from the California legislature and Gavin Newsom, who says this is an important issue. Do you trust our statewide elected officials to solve this crisis? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Morris in Toluca Lake. Morris, hello.
Yes, nothing is going to happen. You look at Pacific Palisades or Palos Verdes Estates there with the homeowners there. The land is crumbling, and our governor did nothing about it. And he knows how to go to China and the Middle East over there and run his mouth on the election. But to take care of California, the insurance, the people, the taxpayer, you can forget about it. So nothing is going to happen. Okay, it's just we live from day to day, and all we know is our taxes are due. Our property tax is due by November 10th. If you're one day late, there's all kind of penalties, and it's all about to feed the homeless, the underserved, some people on social services. That's all we hear about, and nothing for the homeowner. And I can assure you, it comes to the homeowner's insurance, it's going up, whether you like it or not. My homeowner insurance almost tripled right now. So do I have a choice? What am I going to do? I got to pay it. So I got no choice.
No, our choice is either to try to live without insurance, which is incredibly risky, or leave. But this is happening all over the place. Morris, thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. You know, it's interesting. It seems like there is no advocate for the homeowner in the California legislature, in Ricardo Lara's office, because we're the ones who have to pay for all of this. We're the ones that have to pay for all the rate hikes, all the improvements to the FAIR plan. And at the same time, many members of the assembly are like, well, what are we doing about affordable housing? Are we doing anything to make sure that developers of affordable housing, that they're able to pay for their insurance? I guarantee you what's going to happen is we're going to see insurance breaks and rate cuts for people that build affordable housing. And if you happen to live in a single family home, how dare you? You're going to be paying more rates. Look, they're working on it. They say, do you trust our elected officials in California to get us out of this insurance crisis? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Mark in Long Beach. Mark, hello.
Hey, Randy, how you doing?
Doing great.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because my brother-in-law is Bruce Breslaw, the guy that spoke today.
Oh, wow.
And I had to send a text with Ricardo Lara's campaign saying how he's about equity and justice, and also send out the endorsements on who endorsed them. Everyone from the governor on down. So I don't think we're going to get much support. I know Ricardo's getting the support. We're not.
Ricardo Lara is making some really good friends in the insurance industry, and I'm sure we'll see him on some advisory board or on the board of directors of one of these insurance companies when he gets termed out.
Oh, you better believe it.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we're going to have to pay for all of this. Mark, thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. Yeah, his brother-in-law, who was referenced in the piece here, you know, in charge of an HOA in the Chatsworth area, and the premium was $370. It quadrupled. How exactly is anyone supposed to afford this? I mean, I'm looking at what my monthly payment is, and sure, most of my payment is my mortgage. A lot of it's interest, but that's a whole other story, and I have a low rate. A lot of it's property taxes, but this insurance that used to just be like, if you broke it down over the course of a year, a little more than $100 a month, it keeps going up and up and up. So now I've got to adjust and pay every month up and up and up, and I'm not the only one, and I'm nowhere close to a fire zone. Let's go to Dave in Fountain Valley. Dave, hello.
Hey, Rennie, how are you?
Doing great.
Hey, I totally agree with you. This is just, I want to make a prediction for the future. I'll bet you within the next 10 years, maybe even sooner, is the state will assume the insurance liability. They will take on insurance. They will provide it through the state. And what they'll do is they will repeal Prop 13, and they'll make it part of your property tax to cover you for insurance.
That would be quite a frightening situation, because if they got rid of Prop 13, very few people could afford to live here.
Well, and it makes you wonder the way you see it right now, whether they really want any middle class people to live in California anymore. It seems like they're trying to drive us all out.
Well, and that's who this affects more than anybody. The very wealthy, they can afford insurance premiums to go up on their 3 or 4 houses. They definitely care about taking care of the poor who are renters, who are not homeowners. But homeowners, middle-class people living in a single-family home, there's no advocates for them in the middle of this insurance crisis.
Well, exactly. And if they take the insurance part of it out of the private insurance part out of it, just say, man, it's totally unworkable. And government being what it is, saying, oh, you know what, we can help. Let us take it over and we'll make it work. And I guarantee you, they will take it over and they will look around and go, well, we got to have more money to bring it in. And the first place they're going to go is to property tax.
Well, there's such a huge liability. I mean, even with the FAIR plan, that is the plan of the last resort that's supposed to be funded by the insurance companies, because the insurance companies have pulled out, the FAIR plan has quadrupled the amount of people they have on the plan. Their liability far exceeds anything that they are prepared to pay out if the worst happened. And then we're on the hook to pay that already.
I totally agree that. So I think what they'll do, like I said, they take Prop 13 off and say, we've got to raise property taxes so we can keep everybody insured at what they call a fair level. It wouldn't surprise me a bit.
Well, luckily, there's going to be a lot of loud and angry people that'll hopefully stand up and say hell no to that. Dave, thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. You've heard a little bit of Ricardo Lara's secret plan to solve the insurance crisis, which mostly is make it so rate hikes go a lot quicker and with less resistance. Do you trust our elected officials to solve the insurance crisis? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Ken in Newport Beach. Ken, hello.
How's it going? Thank you for
doing
taking
great.
my call. I don't think that the crisis is even solvable. It's the political climate here in California that is driving a lot of this. I'll give you an example. Electric cars. When you get in a car accident with an electric car, most of them are totaled. And my girlfriend's an insurance agent from State Farm, so I kind of know a little bit of the inside. And the bottom line is that those electric cars, they're not cheap. They're $60,000-$80,000 just for a basic car. So the replacement value of these cars are so high now that, like my car insurance has tripled and I have a perfect record. I think it's the policies of the policies of the politicians. The Democratic Party is just running us into the ground.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, and I totally agree. And I am an electric car owner, but I totally admit that, yes, because you have so many expensive cars, mostly Teslas driving around, it has made it so if you get into a fender bender, that 15 to 30 limit that we used to have on insurance makes no sense anymore. So everyone's insurance is going through the roof when it comes to cars. And interestingly enough, we haven't thought about some of the odd side effects of these policies, like with the idea that, okay, we're going to take semi-trucks and make those all electric and automated. I don't know if you heard this story. In Northern California, there was a Tesla electric semi-truck that caught on fire, and because the components accelerate at such a faster rate than an internal combustion engine, it took the fire crews 24 hours to put out this engine fire.
Yep, I've heard about it. Then it's getting ridiculous. There's no way that you can go with a low insurance rate. I live in Newport Beach. The average car there is about $200,000, so I can't even carry a low policy.
Oh boy. You got to be driving real careful in that area. Ken, thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. 1-800-222-5222. Do you trust our elected officials to get us out of this insurance crisis? 800-222-KABC. 1-800-222-5222. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. We're taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. California's insurance commissioner was in Los Angeles today to talk to the Assembly Committee about his new plan starting January 1st to solve the insurance crisis. It would allow insurance companies to increase their rates faster with less oversight and would allow them to use climate modeling that they can't show you to show why they need to increase your rates so badly. My question to you at 800-222-KABC is this. You know our elected officials. You may not have voted for them, but you have to live with them. Do you trust our statewide elected officials to solve the insurance crisis? 800-222-KABC. Let's go to Sam and Carson. Sam, hello.
Hello. A lot of people own their homes free and clear. And if you own your home free and clear, you're never required to have a fire policy. And when's the last time a house burned down? Firemen don't save anybody in fires now. I think it's up to us as individual homeowners to use our clout, which is to remove and just have a liability policy and forget the fire policy.
Well, that's one angle. There are a lot of people, especially in Central California. If you own your home free and clear, you cannot afford your premium going up 4 or 5 times. So there are people who are just straight up, like you said, living without a fire policy and just hope for the best.
People's houses do not burn down until 2024. That doesn't happen. You're much likely to have somebody slip and fall than you are to let somebody have a grease fire. And even if it does, it's not going to cost, your risk and liability, for $40,000 worth of damage and you're paying $8,000 a year policy, and most people don't have that problem.
Well, that's interesting because that's one of the reasons why so many people don't get earthquake insurance, because the deductible is so high, the amount of damage that would have to happen, you'd be paying through the nose for something that might never happen.
Correct. I think the same thing for the issue with fire. People don't have fires in their homes, and, we're paying a lot when you don't use it. I mean, you've been living for 40 years. How many house fires have you been around?
That's a really good point, although I do know a friend that burned down her apartment, but that's a totally other story. Sam, thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. Look, I think we're getting real close to the time in our future where the whole concept of insurance is just so expensive that it doesn't make sense anymore, and then I don't know what we do. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. Do you trust our elected officials to get us out of the insurance crisis? 800-222-KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Your emails as well at randykabc@gmail.com. That's randykabc@gmail.com. California's insurance crisis continues to worsen. Ricardo Lara, the insurance commissioner, says he has a solution that he will implement on January 1st, which will very quickly speed up the time it takes for an insurer to get a rate increase and allow them to use climate modeling to assume that the whole state's going to burn down and they need to charge you more money. Do you trust our elected officials to solve the insurance crisis? 800-222-KABC. Thanks for holding, everybody. We'll get to everyone on hold. Let's go to Kevin in Upland. Kevin, hello. Kevin? Kev? Are you on mute? Kevin? I got no Kevin. Sorry, buddy. Call us back. I could hear me. I just couldn't hear him. It's okay. You can always call us back. Let's go to Sean in Huntington Beach. Sean, hello.
Hey, Randy, can you hear me?
I can.
All right. Well, I was just going to mention, too, that a lot of some of the problems that we're going to have that's going to even make the insurance problem worse is the electric vehicles are, they've been in service for 10 plus years and they're starting to get new batteries. There's cheaper batteries that are out there. So instead of getting a new nice battery for these cars, some of the less expensive batteries, they're going to be catching fire faster. These fires, as you mentioned earlier, are much harder to put out. There are companies now that I've just talked to that are selling blankets and dividers for parking structures where these cars are catching on fire. They can't put them out, and then they destroy the parking structure that needs, all kinds of structural upgrades and fixes for a parking structure you can imagine. And, some of these things that are going to be happening with these electric vehicles when they catch fire are going to cause insurance rates to explode, and it's going to be very difficult to even insure an electric vehicle soon. They also are very heavy, so some of the structures that we use every day, like parking structures and everything else, are not designed for the weight of these semi-trucks and whatnot. So there's a lot of things that are actually going to raise the rates of these electric vehicles more than anybody would know. And if you're building a multifamily complex and you've got to put chargers in there for electric vehicles, your structure is going to have all kinds of fireproofing and all kinds of other things. And when they do put a fire out, it's a hazmat situation, and you've got to have all kinds of cleanup measures to get your structure cleaned up, and which could displace people and all kinds of problems. So, I don't know if I'm on the target with the conversation, but the rates for electric vehicles are going to go up and up and up because they are very harmful. And when they catch fire, and I'll wrap it up, but when they catch fire, they blow flames out the sides. And so they catch the next car next to them on fire. And all these battery EVs, everybody likes any product that's good, and we like it. We're not against anything good. But you'll see as these cars age and these batteries age, you're going to see more and more fires that are going to cause so much damage that they're going to have to raise the premiums, and builders and developers will have to raise prices on rent so that they can fireproof these garages for these electric vehicles. So I just wanted to add to another problem that's brewing, and there will be mandates that we will have to protect these buildings from these electric vehicle fires. So thanks for your time.
I think you make a really strong point. I feel like there are certain policies, including the 2035 mandate, that we have not totally thought this through. And as an electric car owner, I'm glad I keep my car outside. 800-222-KABC. All right, Kevin called back. Let's go back to Kevin in Upland. Kevin, hello.
Boy, I'm sorry about that stupid phone of mine. Hey, the problem is not the problem is Morgan & Morgan, Sweet James, Jacoby & Myers, Larry Parker. We want billions for our clients. Don't take on the insurance company alone. That's the problem. And you ask, is there something that the California State Legislative Body could do to cause this not to happen? There is. We could go to a legal system that when you lose, you have to pay your opponent's legal fees. If we did that, we would cut lawsuits to nothing, and our insurance rates would drop substantially. One of the biggest expenses of the insurance industry is being sued by crazy people looking for a payday, by people like Larry Parker. They've made an incredible living off of this. We have a rental house. The garage door, they claim the garage door failed. It slipped, and the people that rent our house were having a party. They're saying it hit a guest of theirs in the head. The insurance company didn't even challenge it. Here's your $40,000. Go away.
Oh, yeah, they don't even fight them anymore. As soon as there's a lawyer involved, they fold because fighting it is going to cost too much money.
Exactly. Now, that's my point. So we're paying higher insurance rates, and we're just giving that money to the Larry Parker people. That's all. That's the problem. It's not the Democrats. It's not the Republicans. It is because a lot of state assemblymen are attorneys, and they will never allow that to happen where where the winner pays the loser's fee. That's not going to happen.
That's tort reform that is going to be impossible to pass locally, statewide, or federally. I mean, you could say the same thing about medical and why medical insurance is so expensive, and how much of that is tied to malpractice insurance. Kevin, you make a great point. Thank you so much for the call. When's that Clark Fielding spot coming up? Just a couple minutes? Great. Let's go to Barney in Sherman Oaks. Barney, hello.
Hello. Yeah, a few years ago, maybe 15 years ago, the whoever was in charge, the Navy Island off the coast of Costa Mesa there, they went out there and executed all the goats because they were eating all the vegetation up. And all of us who pay insurance get to pay for fires that they have along the power lines and so forth. What they need to do is fence in the power lines and let the goats go out there. All they need to do is give them water. They'll eat the grass, and it'll prevent those fires that we all get to pay for because we're all responsible for the insurance. You know, I mean, everybody's covered by the insurance, and the fact that it's not your property, it's your insurance company, and you have to pay for all that. That all comes out of everybody's pockets. And I think
I think you're totally right. The state should invest a lot more into mitigation efforts, and goats are a very cost-effective one. I remember this summer as I was driving from San Francisco to Carmel by the Sea, I believe around Salinas, I saw on the side of the road a big old field of brush, and they had a giant herd of goats clearing it out nature's way. They actually have a herd of goats on staff to protect the property around the Reagan Library in Simi Valley. Expanding programs like that are a fantastic idea.
Very inexpensive compared.
Love it. Thanks so much for the call, Barney. Appreciate it. We are pro-goat here on the News Blitz. More of your calls coming up. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang. Jeff, Jimmy, stay on hold. I'm coming to you next. It's Talk Radio 790 KABC. Let's go back to the phones. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Let's go to Jimmy in Lake Forest. Jimmy, hello.
Yes, hi. Yes, I was told this by actually somebody in the real estate. I don't know. I didn't do it, but they told me, you know, if you really can't afford insurance, this was years ago when insurance wasn't even that expensive. I could barely buy my first house. And he said, buy the minimal amount of insurance that legally you have to have for this loan. Get the minimal amount. Let's say you buy $1 million home, just say, and let's say you owe $700,000 on it. Okay, you have $400,000 worth of damage into the home, just walk away. Let the bank take care of it. Because, you know, if you have to spend money on insurance and you can't afford it, what else can you do? You got to think of ways to do this because our insurance rates is going to ruin the housing market. I don't know if people understand this, but it's going to ruin the California housing market if we don't fix it. So there's got to be different things. You got to just think outside the box. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, to be honest with you, but I was recommended that by somebody in the real estate agent. Buy minimal, have as much equity or have very little equity on the house. Hey, and if it burns to the max or whatever, hey, just walk away. I don't know if that's a good recommendation, but sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. I understand. Well, thank you.
It's smarter than some of the policies I've heard coming out of Ricardo Lara. I'll tell you that very much. Thank you so much for the call, Jimmy. It's kind of like the old, if you don't like paying high car insurance rates, get rid of that Mercedes-Benz, get $1,000 beater, insure it for the bare minimum, and if you crash it, get another car. We'll go to Jeff next. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Let's go back to the phones. Jeff and Altadena, thanks so much for holding. Jeff, hello.
Hello. So I only got a minute or two, and the point is that the people who are listening, who were voters, they approved all of the Democrat policies that have created all of the problems because you guys have consistently given, for at least the last 20 or 30 years, the Democrats a super majority. They run the legislature, they run the governorship, they appoint all the judges, and therefore you have a dictatorship in California, and you get what you get because you have lost the genius of the founders of this nation, which was checks and balances, so that you do protect the minority, and the people who are complaining are the minority now. So I just want to throw that in there. question.
Well, you make a fair point on so many issues that affect California. The fact that we don't have checks, that the Republican Party is practically non-existent thanks to the supermajorities. But this issue specifically, the insurance crisis, it's fascinating because in the hard blue state of California, it's a big problem. But in the deep red state of Florida, it's also a massive problem. I mean, that state has very little regulation. It is run by Republicans, and their insurance crisis might be worse than ours right now.
Well, you're forgetting the fact that they faced the hurricane seasons and they've had a lot of horrible devastation. So that it's a very superficial thing to equate Florida with California. California, they talk about forest fires. The state of California government management of forests is abysmal. They have not done anything, and that's why you have one of the biggest problems with the fire insurance and everything else, because California's mismanaged. Because there's this.
Well, we definitely have. I give you that. I cannot defend California's mismanagement of a billion of the things. But it gives me a job because I get to complain about it. Thank you all so much for the calls. This was a much more constructive conversation than the one the Assembly had today with Ricardo Lara, and we're sure to continue it. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC.